Welcome, metal community on YouTube. And Alan, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good. How are you doing tonight, Marty?
Doing great. And we are here on another Quickblast Wednesday, um, about to divulge into or descend into the Immortal Discography, our thoughts on the discography and our personal ranking. Alan came up with this idea. And since we haven't really done a lot of black metal, thought this would be a great idea. Great idea
hmm
for a Wednesday topic.
Yeah, exactly. They've got a nice discography to go through. Probably not enough to spend a Friday evening on. And yeah, some folks had asked for a little more black metal content. So, what better place to start than with some Blizzard Beasts?
Yeah. And tonight, we are much like a herpes infected tribble, meaning we're spreading throughout the internet. We're currently streaming live on Facebook and the Marty Worm channel and the Let's Talk Metal channel. We're starting to figure some things out about this. We're not sure if that's going to work in the future or how it's going to affect anything, but we have the capability to do so, and so we're giving it a try tonight. So you guys are all our guinea pigs tonight. If there's anything weird that you notice during the stream, let us know in the comments. And yeah, so Immortal, we were talking a little bit about this band in the dugout before we went live today, and kind of come up with a pretty interesting observation. These guys were there in the beginning in 1992 is kind of when the second wave of Norwegian black metal was born, with the birth of Blaze in the Northern Sky, the self-titled Burzum album, the first Immortal album, and granted, Mayhem has them all beat. 1987 is when Death Crush landed, but that definitely it set the foundation for your Scandinavian second wave black metal. But pretty punky, had a lot of punky leanings to it, kind of a sloppy mess. They didn't really get their shit out until 94, which obviously was due to a bunch of things. But yeah, what do you think about the sad fact that Immortal's often overlooked? When people talk about Norwegian black metal, the birth of Scandinavian black metal, they always utter Dark Throne, Burzum, Emperor,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
Immortal's not really on the short list, which is kind of strange.
It is. It's very strange. It's always struck me as odd that when, yeah, people are wanting to talk sort of, the OG legends of second wave black metal, like you said, it's Mayhem, it's Burzum, it's Dark Throne, and go onto Emperor, Enslaved, Ulver, Satyricon, and people a lot of times completely bypass Immortal for some reason, even though they were right there at the beginning of the scene. These guys were hanging out, around with Euronymous and company. They were part of that whole Helvete scene in Oslo. Their first album came out, just a couple of months after A Blaze in the Northern Sky and the first Burzum album, literally, just months apart. And even beyond that, Immortal, if you look at all these bands, full output, they've had, a very long and consistent catalog compared to a lot of them. Some of these, Burzum did, a few albums before, wandering into more ambient territory. Mayhem's output has always been sporadic. Um, Dark Throne changed styles and kind of lost their original sound. Emperor only lasted for a few albums. Immortal kind of just has steadily chugged away the whole time, and they get zero credit for it. I was double checking, getting ready for this. Like, oh yeah, I want to go back and flip through the big black metal evolution of the cult book just to look for some tidbits and stuff. This one on Feral House. Let's look at the table of contents for a minute here because it's very telling. You've got chapters on early black metal. You've got Venom, Merciful Fate, Bathory, Hellhammer, Celtic Frost. Samael, Rotting Christ, Tormentor, Master's Hammer, Vaughn, Beherit, Mayhem, more Mayhem, even more Mayhem, Thorns, Dark Throne, Burzum, Emperor, Gehenna, Gorgoroth, Treldun, I don't even know that band, Cradle of Filth, Dimmer Borgir, Marduk, Dissection, Graveland, Behemoth, Enslaved, Psy, Dodson Guard, Mysticum, Aborum. Which band didn't I just name? They have no chapter on Immortal and almost no mention I could find going back through the book over the past couple of days. Barely a word. There's a quick mention of like, yeah, Immortal was there. They had guys in Old Funeral, just like Varg, and they just completely go back to talking Varg and Euronymous stuff.
And
And
these
that's
guys,
about it.
I'm sorry, but they walked a very similar path. I mean, all like Enslaved, they were Phobia, a death metal, grindy death metal band.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these guys, Demonaz Doom Occulta and Abath Doom Occulta, both started out, like you mentioned, in Old Funeral in 1989.
Yep.
That had Christian Vickerness or
Yep.
whatever from
Yep.
Burzum in it. That band broke up, and they started another death metal band called Amputation.
Mm-hmm.
That was right in the 1990-91 era. They went for a while, and black metal
Yeah.
starts taking hold, and they started a new band in 1991. Their first demo came out as Immortal, 1991. Right along the same time all their contemporaries were. They're all
Mm-hmm.
drinking in the same pubs. They're all sharing band members. They're all,
Yep.
doing all the dastardly deeds that they were doing. Some were worse boys than others, but
Yep.
it's really a shame. Like you said, like it's not even getting a mention in the book. I mean, come on, really?
Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, maybe they tried to contact them and couldn't, or they didn't want to be interviewed for the book, but it seems odd. I've never heard that they're that hard to interview or anything. Why do you think it is, Marty? Why does Immortal not get the same level of respect or recognition or credit that those other top bands do? Do you have any hypotheses
You
about
know
what?
what? I do actually. It kind of occurred to me that I was going to mention this later in the stream, but now is a better time than any. I think a lot of people looked at Immortal and questioned their seriousness. I
Mm-hmm.
think even though you listen to their music and the shit, it drips with the old school Norwegian atmospheric, unique black metal second wave style. You watch videos like Call of the Winter Moon, and you can't tell me that those guys got done shooting that video, sat down and watched the edited product and didn't have a fucking laugh. Because there's some dumb shit with the dude with the wish hat and the run around striking the poses
Yep.
and going on. I don't know if it was just their sense of humor or if they didn't take it seriously in how they were perceived in the public eye, where Emperor, the dudes in Emperor were doing all the super serious, like Isan silhouetted. You could see his silhouette and he's talking all low and evil
Yeah.
for all these documentaries that was happening back in the explosion of the church burnings and the murders. Here's, a bath doing the crab dance and all these stupid goofy moves, and you
Mm-hmm.
got to say, it's almost like they were making a parody of Norwegian black metal. But having said that, their music definitely walked the walk, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't sound like everybody in Norway at the time, which is, yeah, like Human Falafel says, Abath was always really self-aware of how ridiculous was the image. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm a big fan of the Male Witch too, Ben, but I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely onto something there. That the visual, and it's funny with the visual presentation because on one hand, Immortal has stuck to that image, which is something a lot of people in the black metal fan base really gravitate towards. They still want their bands corpse painted and black and white and everything, and Immortal has never strayed from that. All these other bands, got too mature for that, or got on a bigger label, or changed their sound, and they gave up that, quote unquote juvenile stuff. Immortal is still all spikes and leather and corpse paint,
Yep.
but yeah, at the same time, it also seems to backfire on them a lot of times. They were always targeted with tons of memes, the little dancing GIF images and stuff like that, which did, I think you're right. I think it sort of hurt them in some people's eyes. In thinking about it earlier, it occurred to me that in some ways, Immortal are kind of the Man-O-War of the black metal set. There's a very fine line between what's cool and what's cheesy, And it may just depend on how much you like the music in terms of where you put the band. If they're not quite your thing, it's real easy to dismiss them as just a cornball group.
Yeah.
But if you like them, it's easy to latch onto them and think, damn, that's the coolest looking thing ever. I love that.
Yep.
Another thing that I was wondering with Immortal's sort of perceived lack of street cred, I don't ever recall seeing, Abath or Demon as names associated with any of the more high profile crimes from the scene. They obviously didn't kill anybody.
Yeah. They didn't burn anything down.
I don't remember ever seeing their names on the lists of purported church burners either. And do you think that maybe again, at least early on, maybe cost them a little bit of credibility? Emperor came, back and like, yeah, these guys have been in jail. They burned churches. They killed people. And, it's like, ooh. And Immortal never, had that particular thing going on.
But on the other hand, look at bands like Hades. The member of that band was Varg's wingman on all these church burning. He went to prison for burning a church with Varg. And the first two Hades albums are among two of the best that ever came out of Norway and two of the most overlooked. Not a lot of people talk about those albums, and they are fucking great. And that guy, he burned down shit. He was in the thick of it with the key players at the time. And, they didn't really seem to, granted, it could have been the label they were on. They were on Full Moon Productions at the time, which was a small US label. And, maybe they just didn't get the push, but I don't know. That it could be either way, and it could go either way.
One last possibility I'll throw past you to see what you think of. One other thing that was a little bit different about Immortal pretty early on, not necessarily from the beginning, but early on they started to kind of develop this weird, or not weird, that's the wrong word, unique, almost fantasy take on some of the black metal stuff. They were still doing, focusing on, the cold and the grim and the frostbitten, but they kind of wrapped it all in, the whole, Blashirk mythology in a way.
Yeah.
They created their own little fantasy world for a lot of this stuff to play out in. So, it wasn't, the grim Norse Viking gods of Norway. It was, chaos spirits of the Antarctic Blashik thing, which was obviously just all their own creation. It's like they had their own fan fiction thing going on.
Yeah.
Was that did that cost them points that they weren't sticking to the true satanic metal of darkness, or the true anti-Christian hate? That like these guys are singing about these weird made up frozen places, Raven Dark, and all that stuff. Did that seem too silly or juvenile that they don't get enough, they don't get much respect because of that? Is that something?
It could be. I mean, it kind of lumps them into the not serious, although sorry, people that believe in this stuff, the whole satanic thing, to me is just as silly as the land of Blashrick. It doesn't, but the public perception is they're singing about, like you said, fan fiction type stuff. And it all kind of boils down into this band. Are they serious? Are they silly? You mentioned Manowar, and it's funny. The last time I saw Immortal, they were opening for Manowar.
That's an interesting bill. There's something that goes there well together there. But yeah, so for whatever reason or combination of reasons, it has always struck me as weird that Immortal didn't get listed right up there alongside their peers. Like as you and I were talking to,
it's a shame. It's a shame.
Yeah, it is. It's a shame because they've had a very steady, consistent output of quality records over the years, where a lot of those other bands maybe had 2 or 3 big releases that everybody knows, and the rest of their stuff, or some bands, Mayhem, famously sporadic with releases. It took them forever to put stuff out for a long time.
Yep.
And Immortal, they kept right on churning. Dark Throne's the only other band that really has kind of kept to the same really steady release pace that Immortal has. A lot of those other bands don't generate as much stuff as these guys. So yeah, it's certainly not for a lack of quality albums, which is what we're going to focus on tonight.
Yep. And I gotta say, and some other people commented in the chat that I actually too like the mythos they created. I think it's cool that they did that. It gave them more of a unique thing. But I think I think about all the videos that I've seen, and there is not a single one of them that hasn't been silly. And
Yeah.
it continues to this day. I mean, that new Abath single, it's really bad. It's bad. The song is bad. The video is bad. Oh, it's like, who's his marketing or image person, because they need to be fired and changed. I don't know, but um, yeah. But
Yeah.
let's get into this discography. We're gonna do like we did the last time. What was the last ranking we did? You mentioned it. I can't remember.
Gamma ray.
Yeah, Gamma Ray. We're gonna start with our least favorite each and go backwards. So, we'll start with Alan.
All right. Let me see.
Unless you have anything else to bring up about. Oh, we did mention also offline. We were talking about, the U.S. There's the big four in thrash. There's the big four in Teutonic thrash. There's the big four in Norwegian black metal. Would probably undoubtedly be Mayhem, Burzum, Darkthrone, Emperor.
Yeah.
I think that is universally agreed upon. So what would be the next four? I mean, you mentioned that you don't even think that Immortal would, in public perception, make it into the next four, which again is
I
kind
think
of a drag.
I think they'd have trouble cracking that if it was just opened up to fan base vote. Who is like rank the black metal Norwegian bands five. Immortal should be on that list, but they might have to fight for their spots.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. But yeah,
Yep.
before we get in, the only other sort of disclaimer, as Marty and I mentioned before, we haven't seen each other's lists. And something we noticed is that overall, we tend to like most of these albums. So even though something has to be ranked lowest, we're not saying those are necessarily terrible albums at all. It's just that we don't like them as much as the other Immortal albums. This isn't a catalog that has like a bunch of crap albums and a couple of good albums and a couple of medium albums. It's pretty consistent overall. There's definitely some, my last few, or definitely my last few. The top two are definitely my top two. But even some of these at the bottom, they're not bad albums at all. It's just that I don't like them nearly as much as I like some of the other stuff in the catalog. So again, sometimes when people are listening to rankings, they're like, how can you say that's, number 9? It's like, well, it's just, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying out of the Immortal albums, it's my least favorite. But so yeah, just keep that in mind if you're listening. We're not taking a huge dump on albums by putting them at the bottom of the list. Something has to be at the bottom of the list. And in some cases, it's still a decent album. All right. So shall we start with number 9, Marty? And we'll work our way up.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, at the bottom of my list, there's a few that group together, and they're kind of interchangeable. So I eventually just had to go with something at the bottom. This album, a lot of Immortal albums fans are split on, so some people are going to agree with this and some people are going to hate this pick. I've got Blizzard Beasts as the one I've got ranked 9th. This mid-90s era of Immortal, when they were really focusing on just the sort of hyperspeed blastiness with the very sort of weird, almost scratchy, crackly production. It's just the period of the band that I like the least. I revisit albums like Blizzard Beasts the least out of the Immortal discography, so I've got to start there. It's not a terrible sound. Again, I would not give this album a particularly bad grade. It's got some interesting ideas. They were trying something different, as you mentioned earlier, Marty. They always kind of had their own sound compared to other bands, which was cool.
Yep.
But this particular sound, it was maybe it was just a little too over the top for my ears, but they were so focused on the trying to make it as intense as they could that it never quite gelled. The songs didn't come together, at least for me. So I'm going to start. The bottom of my list is going to have to be Blizzard Beasts. What have you got in the number 9 slot?
Number 9 for me. As you stated, this band has always maintained their own sound, but they've got 3 eras, really.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 4. Well, no, the last era kind of returns to form, but
three distinct ones for sure.
3 distinct eras for sure. For me, it wasn't even coming up with this list was a lot harder than I thought it was, because like Alan said, I mean, I like a lot of these albums. This last album, for the longest time, I did not care for it. I like a few songs on this, but I think it is their weakest link. And this seems to get the most praise, which always surprises me. But it's Sons of Northern Darkness is my number 9. And man, I hate the song Tyrants. I hate that song. It lopes along. It just I don't know. One by One is the best song on the album, and they put it as the lead off. I mean, there's some good shit on here. Again, you know, Immortal was always putting themselves on the cover, but this is just piss poor planning. This is the only one I don't own it actually. This is a promo I got back in the day when it came out. But oops, I should probably switch this around. Sorry, everybody. Just not a good effort. They sound tired on this. There's some good riffs. There's some good ideas here and there, but more or less, they're just kind of lost in this image that they've created. And I do want to say, you've got this album and you got this album that came out before it. And look, the members of the band are even in the same position. It is the lamest artwork ever. It's just piss poor planning all the way around. This is my least favorite. A lot of people love this album. See, this is my number 3. You guys are killing me. This album to me is their weakest. But yeah, that was my number 9. I'm just gonna leave it like this. Everybody can see this.
Yeah, I'll save my comments on that one until I get to that one. It's a little higher up, but that's okay. We're starting out on different frostbitten paths towards the ice-veiled throne of Ultima Thule here.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, number 8.
Number 8. Are we going just back to me?
Yep.
Okay. Number 8, and this should be no surprise given what I said about Blizzard Beasts. Number 8 is Battles in the North. This is the other album in particular from that era of Immortal when they were going for, these very, fast, very dense sounding songs. And, this one got ranked one spot higher than Blizzard's Beasts for 2 reasons. One, it doesn't feel like it's quite as over the top, especially in terms of the production as Blizzard Beasts. And I have a little sentimentality tied to this album. This is one of the first Immortal albums I bought. These guys' stuff was hard to track down in the 90s. It wasn't, again, there was no Amazon to get it from. You didn't have a million people on eBay selling this stuff. I had seen this album reviewed in, it's probably an old issue of like Sounds of Death, maybe. If it wasn't Sounds of Death, it was it may have been Pit zine instead. And it sounded kind of interesting from the description. They had it described, with this, very incredibly flowery, adjective-laced language, but it still sounded kind of cool. There was an ad for it later in the zine. And it's like, okay, yeah, I kept an eye out for it, but nobody ever had it on the shelf. So I eventually ordered it, and it took bloody forever to get it from some mail order place in Maryland that used to advertise a lot. And the first thing I noticed when I got it was the cover art wasn't the same as in the promo ads in the zine. The original cover art was just kind of like a starry, snowy, dark sky. But then when it actually came out, it has, the classic picture of, the guys kneeling there in the snow. So right away, it's kind of like, is this the right album? Is this what I ordered? Yeah, it says it's Battles in the North. Okay. So yeah, it showed up on a day when I actually had missed work. So I was dead sick with a nasty stomach bug. I'd spent the whole night before just puking my guts out. I think it was food poisoning. And so, yeah, I'm just sitting there, the mail shows up, and finally this CD package I'd been waiting literally like 2 months on showed up on the door. It's like, great. It shows up on the one door where I don't feel like listening to this stuff. So, yeah, then one of the recent reissues, by the way, they did switch back and put that original starry, snowy night landscape back on the cover of it, but I haven't picked that up. But yeah, so just because it was an early one I picked up. But yeah, even back then, the album was just like, this isn't the Immortal I'm used to. Yeah, and as such, I had a hard time getting into this album right from the start. So yeah, this period of Immortal is just my least favorite of their material personally. So I've got Battles in the North right there, one step above Blizzard Beasts.
you're we're already getting a lot of heat in the in the comments. If Alan puts All Shall Fall as number one, I'm unsubscribing.
Oh,
Ben left. Ben said you guys are both drunk. You're clearly both drunk. I've only said one so far. Why am I drunk?
Yep. Hey, some folks really do love this era of Immortal. This is the era where I think a lot of people got introduced to the band. So, yeah, I get it that a lot of folks do like this particular sound. And again, I'm not saying these are bad albums whatsoever. It's just that I don't like the approach they had here as much as I like stuff they did on later albums,
right,
or earlier albums as well. So, but we'll get to all of those. Marty, your turn. What have you got at number 8?
All right, number 8 for me. I already showed it. It is Damned in Black. I don't hate this record. I like it a lot better than Sons of Northern Darkness, but yeah, I mean the songs are decent, but following up an album like At the Heart of Winter, that's a tall order, and they didn't really achieve it on here. I mean, you can only go backwards from that riff monster of an album, but this to me, it's an Abyss. During these from At the Heart of Winter on, they switched over to the Abyss Studios, Peter Tagrin's studio, and they got more of a modern sound, which is fine. I know Ben hates it. So cheers to you, Ben. But yeah, it's just a different feel, more modern. The riffs, you can tell there's more Abath riffs and Demon Oz riffs on this stuff, which again is fine. He's a good riff writer. He kind of his voice is real distinct. And I like this album, but I don't love this album. And it really wasn't my last two were not hard to choose. And they have, like I said, they're spiritually the same album cover, just different colors. It's just not a lot of imagination on this stuff for me. That was number 8 for me.
Okay, that's fair. Let's see. So for me, for number 7, actually, yep, Damned in Black is number 7 for me. It's close with the one that comes next, but historically, Damned in Black is one that, yeah, I don't reach for very often. It was the first time Immortal had put out an album this quickly after its predecessor. They had a 2-year spacing on a lot of those albums in 93, 95, 97, 99. And then this came out in 2000. And I remember thinking, wow, that's a fast turnaround time. And then I heard it and just like, yeah, this one is very much going in a different direction than the previous album. We'll talk about At the Heart of Winter later, but this one didn't do a lot of the things that made At the Heart of Winter successful in the eyes of a lot of folks. So this was it wasn't a bad album, but it was a tough one to swallow, given that you were coming off such a very strong and positively received album. Now, that said, going back and listening to these over the past week or two while we've been talking about doing this topic, I do find it's a little better than back in the day. I think back in the day, the disappointment that it was not a better follow-up or a more, intuitive follow-up to At the Heart of Winter hurt this album, in my opinion, more. 20 years down the road, that's not such a factor. And so this one sounds a little better than it used to me. It was still not their strongest material. It very much, someone said in the comments a minute ago, it's very much, yeah, sort of, their blackened thrash album. And that's a fair enough description of it. They do it fairly well for that style. I just don't think it was what people were wanting or expecting to hear from Immortal at that time. And that's one reason the album has never, for most folks at least, gotten perceived as a very strong album. It's one that a lot of people, I think, do rank pretty low. And, both you and I have it pretty low as well. So, yep, Damned in Black, number 7.
All right. For me, my number 7 is Blizzard Beasts. This one was recorded at Sigma Recording Studios, where I have no idea where the fuck that is. But to me, this album always sounded like a mess. It doesn't mean that I don't like the album. In fact, I like it quite a bit. But even though we all know that this is Horg's first album with the band, and the guy he's a beast. But I listen to this thing and it sounds like the drums are sped up. The drums sound pitched up. I don't know if it's because of the trigger they chose or if they took a good drum performance and sped it up to make the shit more extreme. But that is what it sounds like to me on this. And it really piles on the chaos. And this is also Demon Oz's last album as the guitar player for Immortal. And he wrote a good half, if not more, than a bath of the music. But he is a very unique guitar player. He takes very memorable riffs and injects them with a level of chaos, which kind of has been their sound since the beginning, other than the first album to me. Well, I'll get into that later. But this is at the height of the chaos for me. And I like it for that reason. I like a lot of the songs on this. They're Nebular Raven's Winner. It's just the songs seem so strange and disjointed and obtuse that even the places that Abath is putting the lyrics in, it seems strange and foreign to what's going on musically beneath him. And again, that is not a huge swipe on this. Something had to be in seventh position. This was my choice. It's chaos personified. It's the weirdest they ever got. And I like it for that reason, but it's also, I think the albums that I picked to go before this are way better written, produced better. But yeah, I mean, still a good album.
Yep. Yeah, I think, after that they changed direction. They almost had to change direction because I don't know how they could have continued down that path from Battles in the North to Blizzard Beast. Where else would you have gone at that point without it literally just becoming like some kind of, I don't know, electronic music screamo grind thing? I mean, they were really pushing it with that album, which was, cool for them to try. There's nothing wrong with that. But they almost had to change directions after Blizzard Beast.
And again, right. Scott Tannick, I mean, I love Blizzard Beast. Damn. I mean, I like the album too. I don't dislike this album. I dislike Sons of Northern Darkness. The only album by them I like. I really don't care if I ever hear that album again. The rest of the stuff I like, even the ones I don't like a lot, I still like. It's still good. We've already come around to that, but everybody's getting pretty pissed here, and don't get mad. Don't be sad.
Immortal is one of those bands people, do feel strongly about, whether they like it or hate it or something. The things they like, they really like, and the ones they don't, they really don't sometimes. But this era, people really dig it sometimes, and that's cool. It's just not the era for me, at least.
Yep.
All right, but now time to move on to number 6. This one, a lot of folks will probably have this ranked higher. And I'm sorry, but I just never got into this album as much as other Immortal albums or as much as other albums from this day and age. Number 6, I've got Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism, the debut.
That's tough.
Again, it is not a bad album, but it very much, even now, going back and listening to it, it's like, this is a band finding their sound. They're still getting used to things. It's not a fully formed product just yet. I like, I've always thought it was, a cool looking album. It's got a cool title. I've always liked the cover art on that one. It's kind of neat. I know some folks are
are throwing hot garbage at you.
And I knew they would. And that's okay. That's quite okay. I know a lot of folks, for a lot of folks, this is, their favorite. I just don't. I never reach for this album. I really don't. Even going back and playing it this week, it's like, yeah, there's some cool ideas on here, but they're not. I don't feel like they've quite got all the kinks worked out yet, and especially when you compare it, to the other albums that came out around it. The first Burzum album, A Blaze in the Northern Sky, those were much more fully realized visions than Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism was for me. This was like I had it way back in the day. I can't remember if I got it in a CD trade or it might have been the fellow who used to run the little metal fanzine I wrote for a little while sent me a copy of it. It was really interesting, but it's never been one of those classic must-have, must-hear albums for me personally. And it's really cool to see that a lot of folks are into the album. I would not give it a bad grade, but it is not the OG second wave of black metal album for me personally. So I got to rank it down here at number 6.
Right on.
What you got at 6, Marty?
My number 6. This album seemed to be, people seem pretty indifferent to this album. I liked it immediately. I listened to it twice today. I love this record. And I think of the Post at the Heart of Winter albums, this is by far the best. And for number 6, I have All Shall Fall. This album is really good. And it strikes me, well, first of all, half of it was recorded. Well, most of it was recorded at Abyss Studios again, but the vocals, Abath went back to Pitton at Grieg Holland Studios, where all the classics were recorded, and they did the vocals there. And this album, if you listen to the title track, the first track, which is an amazingly epic song, and songs like Mount North, there is a recommitment here to them trying to get back into the old feel of where they started, though there's still the modern tinges and there's still those sharp riffs, non-chaotic riffs. They're, like I said, a recommitment to the old school of black metal on this, and I love it. The songs on it, I like the vocal production, I like the feel of these songs, I like the way the words interact with the music. They just, the feel is back. It seems more serious. It seems like a darker record coming off of Sons of Northern Darkness and Damned in Black. This is a great album. I really like. I was going to rank it higher, but man, we're starting to get into territory that's covered by much bigger classics. But of the Post at the Heart of Winter, this fucking album rules. And if you don't agree, definitely go check it out again. If anything, All Shall Fall, what an amazingly epic song. And like I said, Mount North, Hordes to War. I mean, every song on this album is great. Really good stuff, really strong. If it wasn't for a couple of these other releases, it'd have been higher on my list for sure.
Yep. Yeah, that one's, I'll talk about it when I get to it on my list, but it was notable because that's the album that was a little bit of a comeback. It was the longest hiatus in the band's catalog. That you had Sons of Northern Darkness come out in 2002.
Yep.
And this one didn't come out until 2009. So you had a 7-year gap. Now, in that gap, you did have the band doing some other things. That's the period when the I album came out. That was sort of a side project for them.
And the Demonaz album.
The Demonaz album came out just a couple years later. I think it was 2011.
Okay.
But he was probably working on material for that.
Yeah, great album. That's a good album.
It's a really good album. That's one I completely missed when it came out. I just never was aware of it for the longest time. And again, for a lot of solo albums, those can be pretty unnecessary in many cases. Let's be honest. So I was like, well, okay, I'll give it a try. I don't know if it just popped up in the YouTube feed one day or what, but when I heard it, I was like, damn, that's really good. Demonaz, nailing it with a lot of early, or not early, but more like Hammerheart era Bathory creeping in on that Demonaz album. So quality stuff. But I agree. In general, I agree. That's a good return after 7 years of wandering the frostbitten kingdoms of the Antarctic blackened waste.
Yep.
Funeral Mist Doom Black Spike something.
Yep.
How many edges we can fit in. Okay, and you're right. We are getting into territory here where the albums are pretty consistently good. So some of these rankings could easily, you could shift an album up or down one, maybe even 2 spots, and we're splitting hairs almost on some
of the chat is funnier and shit tonight. Sorry I'm not sharing everybody's. There's just so much of it.
Folks are having a good time with it, and that is great. I'm glad a lot of folks are checking us out.
Simon says all shall fail.
I don't know what Simon is. We'll have to get Simon, post your rankings before the night ends so we can see what your thoughts are and how we have wronged you. So
everybody's still swinging from the Sons of Northern Darkness nuts. Man, I never understood why people love that record so much. It's probably their highest point of popularity, and I don't know, that album just always bugged me. Anyway, everybody's got different, tastes, which is cool. Anyway,
we'll get there. Because I'm not picking it yet.
If it's your number one, I'm unsubscribing.
You're not. I'm not going to. We should not lose. If I lose a subscriber tonight, it won't be for that reason. maybe for other reasons. But anyway, let's see. So we're on to number 5 here. At number 5, I have their last album to date, Northern Chaos Gods. And this is
Number
a pretty
5.
cool album.
Yeah.
I like this album. This was another one that when it came out, I just did not check it
Hey,
out.
our number 5s link up, so we're gonna get this out of the way and talk about it at the same time.
Okay, good
This
deal.
is my number 5 too.
We're on the we're finally a matchup here. I completely missed it when it came out. I probably saw it on the shelf or something. It's like, okay, there's an Immortal thing. It did not circle back to it for quite a while. And again, this is also the one the duo has split apart. Batman and Robin are not a thing anymore. So what's it going to be like? Well, it turns out it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, he's playing guitar again, which is great.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds good. It's I kind of wondered, would it sound a lot like the Demoness solo album? And it leans towards that sound a little bit, but not a ton. This very much stands up as a very solid Immortal album. He didn't take it off in some weird new direction. Didn't just make it sound like a second solo album. It's still quite good, start to finish. It hits, most of it checks off the boxes that you want out of an Immortal disc, even though Abath's not part of it anymore. So yeah, it's not one that I know particularly well since I haven't spent as much time with it. Again, I missed it when it came out, but it's a very solid album. There's nothing wrong with this one. I could even see it bumped one notch higher on this list, given more spins. If it really sticks with me more and more over the years, it could bump up. It's a good album. I like it quite a bit. What's your take on it, Marty?
I actually had it higher on the list, but if you can see my paper, it's been erased about 15 times. I had a hard time ranking these because listening to this the last couple, I haven't really spun this a lot since it came out. Spinning it yesterday, man, I've been blown away by this record. I'm utterly shocked at how good it is. I mean, Demon Oz, he had hand problems. He stopped playing because he couldn't really do it. He practiced too much. He repetitive motion crap ruined his hands and his arms, and I get it. But he's back on this. His vocals are great. They sound a lot like a Bath, but a little more extreme. His strange, obtuse guitar playing is there, but he tempers it a little bit. It's not as insane as it used to be, but it's very much catchy, memorable. Initially, after listening to all the Immortal shit, the sound is very tight. And then you get to this album that was recorded at Conclave Studios in Bergen, and the drums were recorded at Abyss Studios, and obviously because Horg is also in Hypocrisy. But the guitars are very roomy sounding. It's a little bit more spacious of a guitar sound and an overall atmosphere. But once you get into it, man, the songs on here are great. They're really well written. And someone said it's easily the best since the first 4. I actually had it higher on the ranking, but I changed it last minute. I'm really surprised at how good this is. And if you go to their Bandcamp page now, it says their status is being, what did it say? Well, I can tell you, I have it up. Do I have it up? Their status is disputed. So I've heard word that Horg is trying to take over the name legally. And, these guys are just dudes that cannot get along. I don't know what's going on. Obviously, if your drummer who came in on your 5th album is trying to take over the rights to the name, that's bullshit. It's just bullshit.
It isn't. It's
just not going to come down. But this is a great fucking record. Definitely, if you've not heard this, or haven't heard it in a while, give it another shot. I was blown away. It again, where All Shall Fall was a recommitment to the old style. This is even further down that road. It's like Demonize is like, okay, this is the album that should have came out after Battles in the North.
Someone made a similar comment in the chat a few minutes ago that this should have come out like after the Blizzard Beast Battles era.
Yeah. It should have. It's a little more, the songs are more intense, but more form to the riff writing. It's still his obtuse sound, but he tempers it a bit with some catchiness, which is what the modern era of Immortal brought. I think they really injected a lot of memorable riff writing to the chaos. But this is Immortal back on track for me. It's a great record, and it'd be a goddamn shame if there is no follow-up to it.
It would, yeah. There was, a 9-year gap between this and All Shall
Yep.
Fall. And yeah, I mean, with the lineup changes and that much time passing, again, I missed this album when it came out, so I don't know what people's hype or expectation was. But if I had been paying attention, my expectation would have been, oh man, this could go really, really wrong, and it didn't. It's really good. Something worth mentioning here, and this is just this album. It closes on a killer track, with Mighty Raven Dark.
Oh yeah.
And we've talked on other streams about
Very
bands
epic.
that are very good at having a killer opening track. Immortal's often very good at closing an album out really strong.
Yep.
And I think that works well to them. Their albums never overstay their welcome. A lot of their albums are only around that 40, 45-minute mark. A lot of times it's only, maybe 7, 8 songs. But a lot of times they really do have, a real pounder to go out on. And so you get, this short album, it hits you, and it goes out on one of the strongest tracks a lot of the time. So it leaves you with a really strong impression of the album when it finally, reaches the end. Immortals always had a good ending to their albums overall.
Yep.
All right. So I think we're into top 4 territory now. And let's see. Again, this album could have moved down a notch, maybe. Like yourself, I had to rearrange some numbers a couple of times, but for number 4, this is where I've got All Shall Fall. Your description of it earlier is very good. It's got a very dark overtone, but almost, doomy hints at time. Not in style. They're not playing doom metal. It just has a little bit more of a foreboding atmosphere than some of their other albums. And I think it works really well for them. Once again, like you said, it's a good return to form. It's, kind of recommitting to some of the sounds of old. It moves away from, the Damned in Black era of style. But again, several years had passed, so maybe that came naturally. But yeah, epic songs, very strong, kind of, monolithic tunes that hold up very well. It makes for a very tight, very consistent album. I like it a lot. I've gone back, this was one pulling it back out and playing it again. So I was like, yeah, this is really good.
It's a great album.
This is held up really nicely.
Yep.
So yeah, it feels a little weird having it as high as 4, but I, and looking at them, it's like, yeah, I think this is where it goes. It could have cracked the top 3 even. Number 3 is also going to be a little wiggly on its spot. But yeah, so I've got All Shall Fall up here at number 4.
Yep. Good album. Okay, my number 4 is Battles in the North.
Okay.
This one has been further down the list, back up the list. This album starts really great, ends really great, and gets there's some songs in the middle that aren't as good, but it's still overall a solid, good feel, good vibe. Again, the weird, obtuse guitar riffs are what really sell it for me on this. And the production is really wonky. It's very much a clean sounding, even though there's distortion, it still has a very clean feel to it, which is weird. I don't know if they were going for a cold. This was also recorded at Studio Grieg Holland. Abath played drums on this one, and again, there was rumors that they sped up the drums on this one too, which may have been the case. It gives this album a weird, wonky vibe, but it somehow became the feel in just how this album is. It becomes part of the sound, and I like it. I think it's the end of the truly classic Immortal sound. I think that's probably why I have a lot of fondness for it, and I also paid $25 for the import of the CD. So, you spend a lot of time.
Same here.
Spinning these things, even if it might not blow you away as much as the other ones did. This one really grew on me. I like it a lot. It's a good album. It's the last of the classic era. It had to be my number 4.
Oh, that's fair enough. Yeah, I paid similar for that import CD that took 2 months to show up the day I was puking my guts out. So
yep.
Yeah, I battled through that album a bunch of times, and damn it, I tried to get my $25 out of it. I did over time, but yeah, it was not an instant success with me. Okay, so are we into our top 3?
Yep.
We are into our top three. Okay, so this one you and I diverged on quite a bit. And this one might be a little lower. I didn't have it this high at the beginning of the week or last week when I started going through these, but it's actually, I thought it held up well and better than I expected it to. This is where I've got Sons of Northern Darkness. Is it number three? This album, to me, it makes sense as a follow up to Damned in Black, but it's a much better version of that style. For this album, I hear hints of everything they had tinkered with before. You hear, bits and pieces of the, grandeur they had from At the Heart of Winter. You hear, the more, you definitely hear some of the black and thrash elements from Damned in Black, but it doesn't dominate the whole album the way it did on Damned in Black. Yeah, it's, just sort of, a collage of things from different periods in Immortal's history up to this point. And as such, I kind of like it. It's almost like it's a nice capstone up to this point in their career. And it is a natural break in their career because after this, they don't have anything out for a while until the I album. I always forget the name of that album. Sorry, I'm just going to call it the I album. Everybody knows the one I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That came out 4 years later. So yeah, this one, for me, it clicks. Yes, the album cover is horrible, but you can say that about most Immortal albums, to be honest. Cover art, they always want to put themselves on it, and that's fine. But no, there's not many Immortal albums you're going to sell based on the cover art alone. But yeah, I think the album's just a good. It's them, incorporating things from throughout their years, putting it together, and coming up, with a pretty, solid album as a result of that. So yeah, I actually like Sons of Northern Darkness, and I've got it here at 3. I could see a couple of these other albums could easily surpass it. This may be one I take off the shelf next year. Maybe it doesn't strike me quite as strong as it has more recently. We'll have to see. But for now, I want to put it at number 3.
Again, depending on my mood, this ranking could shift easily. It could shift depending on my mood getting into this stuff. But number 3 for me is their debut, Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism.
Okay.
Actually, I'm surprised it's not a little bit higher because I grab this a lot when I go to listen to Immortal. This to me is their Bathory album. This to me, of the albums that came out in 92 from the big bands in Norway, I think Dark Throne was a little more Celtic Frost and Bathory influenced. Burzum had their own thing kind of going, although there was some Bathoryisms going on there. These guys had their own sound, but yet you could tell there was a lot of Bathory, the first 3 albums going on here. But these guys weren't super chaotic yet. They were just more old school sounding, not a lot of super fast blasting, but good pace, good mix of tempos, good songwriting. And a Bath just sounds super savage on this. Again, another Grieg Holland Studios, and this to me is the most Grieg Holland sounding. It's got a very big booming atmosphere, a lot of room reverb, or just I don't know if they recorded it in the big hall there, but it sounds like it has a big sound to it. The riffs are amazing. Again, this band has always been really adept at writing great riffs. But these early albums just have more of an old school cult flair to it. This is an album with the band members on the cover that I can get behind. This is fucking cool. This is, this embodies the black metal spirit to me. And then they put out Call the Winter Moon video, which is just fucking dumb. Them striking poses in a witch hat out in the woods. I mean, they're confused. They're probably young. I mean, I don't know what's going on here, but this is a great album. Again, it probably should be higher, but it's so hard to really whittle these down. But this is a great album. Again, they really started out strong, and I don't know why this album isn't held in higher regard amongst people when they're, waxing poetic over the history of Norwegian black metal.
No, good points. And yeah, I like the cover art on that one. And yeah, I am surprised. I thought for sure you'd have that in your top 2. I'm surprised you didn't.
It's close. And like I said, there's been a lot of changes. It was at one point.
Yep. Well, I guess we'll see how this plays out, because we both have the same two in our top two, but I don't know if we've got them ranked in the same order. I'm betting we don't. We'll
Yeah,
see
I
if
think we probably do.
I don't know. We'll see.
Damn it. Heartburn.
You okay?
Yeah.
You need a break? You need a
No,
break?
the White Claws give me heartburn. Anyway.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we are to the top two then.
Yep.
All right. This is very hard for me because, and one reason I like Immortal so much, they made two perfect albums in their career. And so trying to compare those two to one another for me is really tough. Most bands, they make a lot of good albums. Some bands, they have, that one classic album that you really love. Immortal made two that I love to death. And so that's one reason, I've always, had a soft spot for the band, and why I think they, I'm biased. They should get more, prestige and respect than they do, because not many bands put out two albums that you give that, A plus 100% kind of grade to. And these last two albums, both of them for me are absolute just top of the bill. Love them both. But I got to rank them tonight. And so in the number two spot is At the Heart of Winter.
Yeah,
I'm putting this one second. And there's a reason that, again, I'm having to split a hair here. At the Heart of Winter is an amazing album. Love this to death. When it came out, I didn't rush out and buy it, because again, I had not been blown away by the previous two albums. They were okay. Again, they're not bad albums, but I didn't like them enough that I was going to run out on day one and buy At the Heart of Winter. So it was a little time went by before I heard this album. I probably got it like in a CDR trade or something, to be honest. And as soon as I heard it, I was just completely blown away. As I was like, holy shit, they have changed direction, significantly, and they've absolutely fucking nailed it. At the Heart of Winter, for one thing, it's one of the only albums that doesn't feature the members on the cover, and it's got this great cover painting, fits the mood of the music and what they're trying to do really well. And what they're doing is now fully epic. This album, it's not a long album. It's still only around the 46-minute mark, I think. Smaller number of songs, but each song is a bit longer. These get up in the 6 and 7 minute range, but it's because they're giving these songs room to breathe and really develop this huge, sweeping, epic vibe that at the same time, the production's really strong this time too. They're not going for, this kind of weird sound they were experimenting with on Blizzard Beast. The production's almost, bright sounding. It gives the songs a real feel of like, it's a triumph. It's an uplifting kind of thing. This is the sun, glistening off the frost-covered kingdoms. It's not a journey through the dark or anything like that.
Yep.
And it's magnificent. It's amazing how they put this album together. Not because they're not talented or anything, just because they hadn't done anything like this before. This was very different than a lot of the stuff that had come before. And boom. And it's not like they went on a long hiatus too. This was again on that same kind of 2-year rotation. And here they are delivering a very different sounding album, and it's just glorious. And I love this album to death. Still, I've got to rank it number 2 for reasons that we'll get to in a little while. But yeah, it's an amazing album. It's an A+ album. It's 100%. I love At the Heart of Winter. It's the Immortal album I will point towards most often if folks want to hear one Immortal album. This is probably the one you should listen to. But Marty, you may not. I don't think you've got them in this order now, do you?
Nope. Number 2 for me is Pure Holocaust. And
okay.
This album is great, and it's amazing. Even though they're recorded in the same studio, there is a change from this album, which is very first wave black metal inspired, to this album, where they kind of embrace the spiritually where they're heading, and it has a big sound in a different way. It's still really, Grieg Holland was very much known for a lot of reverb, a big roomy sound. This is a lot tighter. this album is very tight sounding. It's very fast. Again, I think Eric is listed as drums on here. I think he did not play on this album. Don't quote me. I think Abath played drums on this as well, but Eric was in the band live. I don't know. I don't remember how it all goes down, but the songs on this are very tight, very lethal, very fast, very dark. I mean, and again, we talk about, the band's sense of humor. You got the Imperial March worked into one of the songs on here, the Darth Vader theme. Every time I hear it, it kind of bugs me. I'm sure it had to be planned. I mean, it wasn't there's no way you didn't hear that and not know that it wasn't the Darth Vader thing. But great. This came out when this come out? 93.
93. Yep.
Right in the heyday of the whole Norwegian black metal thing. And this thing fits within that pantheon of atmospheric Norwegian black metal. Even though they're fast, they took the fast road. There's a lot of feeling and darkness on this, and it really embodies what was going on in the scene at the time. And again, that this band isn't held in higher acclaim with people is kind of crazy. And here, this is a cool, even the album cover, it's got the band members on the cover. It's cool. It looks serious. Yeah. They look like they're here to do the devil's work, and work they did. This is a great record. And if it wasn't for At the Heart of Winter, it would have been my number one. And number one. What's yours?
That's right. Gee, what's left?
Yeah.
Have a Sons of North. No, I covered Sons of Northern Darkness. Sorry. Number one for me is Pure Holocaust. It's the in terms of a grade or a numerical ranking, it's the same as At the Heart of Winter for me. It's a very different album, though. Yeah, as you said, and correctly so. This one has all the aesthetics and all the sounds that you'd associate with those earliest years of Norwegian black metal. That's 93. At the Heart of Winter is 97. And as someone mentioned in the comments a minute ago, At the Heart of Winter feels very different. It doesn't feel like a typical black metal album in a lot of ways. It's magnificent, but it's very different. This album, for me, this could almost just be the textbook definition of early Norwegian black metal. You could just flip open, Abath's, heavy metal dictionary, go to black metal, and they could just have a little thumbnail of Pure Holocaust right there. The cover art is great. I love that image. And yes, I mean, it's, exactly what you expect. The stereotype of Norwegian black metal, black and white, the corpse paint, the grim appearances, the crazy logo with the upside down cross and all that. The sound, blisteringly fast through a lot of it, but there are pacier parts that are done very well. Lots of atmosphere still worked over the top of it. It's not just fast. It has the atmospherics added in. And even here, they're already starting to develop a lot of those elements from their fantasy feed. Let's see, it looks like Marty ducked out for a second. Either that or I've lost connection.
I'm here. My kid's going to bed. Go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. I was like, I'll just keep talking until I'm sure that I know I'm on or off camera. But this album is everything that I think you could want out of a first wave Norwegian black metal album. And the reason I have this one ranked a little higher than At the Heart of Winter, the tiebreaker for me is this was one of the albums that introduced me to Norwegian black metal. I was a latecomer to this scene. In the mid-90s, early mid-90s, I was living out in the Midwest, and black metal just did not penetrate anywhere close to where I was at. I was at the local indie college record stores weekly, if not twice a week. None of this stuff ever showed up. We would listen to the college metal radio show every Friday and Saturday night. All they were just there's death metal and nothing but death metal. And every now and then you'd hear some classic 80s tune, and you knew I was the one who had called in and bugged them to play that just to break up the Cannibal Corpse and Deicide and Malevolent Creation for a little while. It really wasn't until about 90, I'm thinking it was fall 95, when maybe spring 95, where some black metal started to trickle into that area. And the first ones were Samael, Ceremony of Opposites, and Emperor's Nightside Eclipse. Those were the first albums that started to get some play on the local college radio, and that Emperor showed up at the record store first. It was like, holy crap, they've got the Emperor album. And after that, it's just like, okay, there's something to this. And I ended up doing just a small tape trade with somebody out of California. They wanted to hear new wave of British heavy metal. They had never heard much of that. And I wanted to hear some more of this black metal stuff because nobody, around where I was living had any of that. And so we each filled a 90-minute tape for one another with, songs by different bands. And the tape he sent me it was kind of split it was like 30 minutes of Ancient from the first album.
Svartalfheim, that's a good album. That's their only really great album. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 30 minutes from Svartalfheim. It was 30 minutes of Burzum from a couple of different albums. It was some from the first album, at least one track from his Lysa Taros, which I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of. And it was 30 minutes of Immortal tracks, and almost all of them were from Pure Holocaust. There may have been one track from Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism. And that cassette tape was really kind of starting to again opening the cemetery gates of the Holocaust winds coming right through. It's just like, oh damn, these are pretty cool. And of the three, Immortal was the one that immediately impacted me. Loved this velocity of it. I loved the atmosphere of it. Just this really grim, frostbitten sound. Again, the fact that you could kind of tell they were developing their own little world here and exploring it. And that blew me away. So that album was one I had to go out and track down. And I'll be honest, I don't even remember how I finally got a hold of that damn thing. I probably was CD trading with somebody in the early internet days, but it took a while to find. But got that after some searching. And yeah, to this day, I love it. To this day, I consider it one of the perfect black metal albums. So given my history with that particular album and it helping introduce me and get me a little deeper into black metal, I've got to give that one the nod over At the Heart of Winter. That's why Pure Holocaust is ranked number one for me.
It's funny you mentioned, tapes, and it should probably be stated during this time. I mentioned a couple times, and you did as well, that if you wanted to buy this shit from overseas, it was an import, and it cost typically $25 just for the CD. Before you start lopping on so you get these things, they're like diamonds. It's like you found the blood diamond, and I like, Pure Holocaust. For the longest time, I had a dub tape that I got in a tape trade with. I was late to the tape trading game, but when I hit it, I got into it real heavy, and it was just to try to get around the import prices and hear all these bands. My first hearing Satyricon and Immortal and Impaled Nazarene and all that shit was thanks to tape trading. And that was a very important, us old farts were before the internet. So very, very important. But my number one, At the Heart of Winter. Why is this your number one? You typically prefer more cult black metal, Marty, when it comes to Norwegian stuff. I do, but when it comes down to it, I'm a guitar player. Am I a particularly great one? No, but I appreciate good songwriting and I appreciate riffs. And this album, they switched over from Grieg Holland. Well, actually, they switched over from that Sigma recording studios where Blizzard Beast was recorded. They went to Peter Tagren and they got that more modern sound with At the Heart of Winter. So this is another big evolution. They're coming off a very chaotic, strange record with Blizzard Beasts. They Demon Oz can't play anymore. He's out of the band. As far as, I don't know what input he had on these songs. I don't know if this is all Abath's doing. I have no idea. But whatever was in the water at this time or the beer they were drinking, this is one of the perfect riff albums in my book. This sits up there with For Victory by Bolt Thrower and some Running Wild albums. Perfect riff album. Every song, there isn't a throwaway riff on this album. It's perfectly paced. From Withstand the Fall of Time to Years of Silent Sorrow, Heart of Winter. I mean, humongous, huge with really cool riffage that is expansive in its own weird way. It's weird how big this record gets. It gets, like you mentioned, triumphant. It is a very triumphant album. It's like you said, light. There's a lot of light on it, glistening off the ice on the mountains tops. It's amazing. It's perfect description, Alan. And God, I really wanted to put Pure Holocaust or Diabolical up in that top spot because I've listened to them albums probably more since I've had them longer. But when this album hit, I was blown away at how well written it was. It seems like the change was a good change, a very serious change. They're very much more focused on strong songwriting with riffs that you could stick with, that would stick in your head after the album was done and inspire you to play it again. Where this early stuff was maybe a bit more feel and crazy chaos shit. This is a very formed out, pre-planned, every note's perfect. I love this record. I like the production of it. I know Ben is definitely throwing his own feces at me for saying that, but it just fits. It fits. It's a modern, as far as modern black metal for this time. When did it come out? This came out in
97,
99. I mean, that's black metal in Norway is changing at this point. A lot of the bands are going either a little more electronic and weird, or they're going like this very modern turbo style death metal. It was very strange the way Norwegian black metal went. Or they went proggy. It's just weird how it's splintered. There's a few bands here that maintain the essence and continued on to the end, but this album forged its own path, but didn't lose sight of its past. This to me doesn't slight what came before it. It's an enhancement of that. It's like they learned from those building blocks and learned how to write really good songs. And again, coming off of Blizzard Beast, the songs are kind of a train wreck. I like them, but it's a mess. This here is very, you could tell they sat down with a protractor or something and had some flow charts and, maybe it worked in Pi 3.14 something into a couple of the equations. And they came up with they never wrote an album. I mean, Damned in Black after this is not as good as this record. Sons of Northern Darkness, sorry folks, is not as good as this record. Perfect.
They go away from this style. They really didn't make an album that followed in this style. Damned in Black came out a year later and was a completely different direction, which it threw fans for a big loop when Damned in Black came out. It didn't I don't remember it getting panned in reviews or anything, but it really felt strange to folks that they could come out with this just epic, grand masterpiece one year, and the next year they were playing like this really stripped down blackened thrash that still had good sound. It wasn't raw or anything, but all of those layers of epicness were kind of just taken away and replaced with more of a thrash vibe. It wasn't a bad album. It was just such a right hand turn, and it's just like, but you just did such a perfect album. Can we have one more please before you move on?
Yep.
We didn't get it at the time. But again, they circled back a little bit more to that, on some later releases. There's never been an At the Heart of Winter 2, but they've incorporated elements of it on later albums to good effect.
Yep.
All right. Well,
there you have it. There you have it. We could talk about Bath's debut album. Apparently, when the split happened, I heard that album he stole all that. That was all supposed to be Immortal. He stole all that material and put out the first Abath album. And, I think it's a decent Abath album. I don't think it would have been a really particularly great. After All Shall Fall, that was not going to be a good follow-up to All Shall Fall. I liked it. I liked some of Outstrider. I think it's okay. It's Abath. But this new shit that he is putting out, the one song is garbage. It's hot garbage. You could tell he's just relying on the parody,
Is that the Dreamco track?
Oh, yeah, it's not a good song.
I heard it twice on Liquid Metal commuting back and forth. They played it this morning and this afternoon, just like, not as good as the stuff from the first two solo albums from him. I don't know how that material from the first one would have worked as an Immortal album. I didn't know that he had supposedly taken a lot of that material from them.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's hard. You never know what it would if the whole team had been working on it together, how it might have turned out. But I agree. Those first two solo albums by him they're okay. To me, they feel like they lean a little closer to the Damned in Black style. whereas the Demoness solo album leans more towards the epic, as we mentioned before, like more like almost sort of the classic Bathory sound. Um, so, and if that's where their headspaces were at, might make sense. Why they eventually had to split up and go in different directions.
Yep.
Maybe they just couldn't get along anymore. One thing that's interesting from it, at least, a lot of times when bands fall apart, the end result isn't good for anybody involved.
No.
The guy that goes off and tries to do the solo stuff, it doesn't go anywhere. The guy that tries to soldier on with the band name, that doesn't go well either. And that didn't really happen in this case. Like you just mentioned, those Abath did okay with the solo albums, but Demonaz did really great with that
He did
Immortal
better. He fared much better. That album is head and shoulders higher above the Abath material. It's a really good, serious Immortal record.
Yeah,
I'm kind of glad if that's the case. I'm glad they lost that material because they wrote better. They wrote better material.
Yeah, but yeah, it's not like Abath crashed and burned or anything, or that he went off and started doing dance music. It's the first couple albums, like those are still solid enough albums. So it's a rare case where the creative duo split apart, but they both continued to do pretty well for themselves, even though they were going in different directions. So
yep.
Kudos to them that it worked out. A lot of times, yeah, that's a scenario that doesn't bode well, but they've made it do okay so far. Maybe the rest of the material on this next Habits album number 3 comes out sometime this year. Maybe Dream Call is just the single and as such a little weak, and the rest of the material will be better. We can hope. There's a chance.
Yep.
We'll find out when it drops later this year.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's what these Wednesdays are for. We're gonna start, when we both are able to convene on a Wednesday, we'll be doing stuff like this. And the game, the Keeper Reap, that's always fun. We'll figure out little fun things to do that are an hour or so long and not so demanding on time, and keep the bigger episodes for Friday. But thanks to everybody for hanging in there with us tonight. And hey, if you've got a band you'd like us to do a deep dive on, go ahead and put it in the comments. And again, all the people that have commented, I'm sorry, I've been really shitty at responding to comments. I've been busy and I forget. So, I mean, there's been a lot of comments. It doesn't mean I'm blowing you people off. I just haven't had time to sit down and do it. But yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what you guys think, and go ahead and put your rankings down in the description as well. Be curious to see what y'all think. It's been a hilarious chat tonight. Thank you everybody for sharing your comments, and yeah, it's been a hoot.
Yeah, there's been a lot of folks there, and everybody's had a good time. Yeah, as we've mentioned before, Immortal, people like different eras of the band and rank the albums very differently, but that's part of the fun of these kind of things, is seeing where people put different things. And as we've said several times, it's a band with a good catalog. It just is. They've not had the weird period or the experimental phase or the down years that so many bands have to go through. This is a band that's been very workmanlike and put out solid albums, and hopefully Demonaz will keep it going and with some more solid albums in the near future. Hopefully this lead single from Abath is an outlier, and maybe that album will be really strong too. They just both keep doing their thing.
Actually, Electric Banana, he says, yes, please do a Bathory stream episode. That is in the plans. And if you watch the Motorhead discography we did with Professor Black from High Spirits, he is writing a book, has been writing a book for some time on Bathory with another guy from can't remember the zine's name, but they're writing a big book on Bathory, and when that's done, we're going to get him on. We're going to talk about the Bathory book, and then we will go through and rank and go through the entire Bathory collection. We were going to do that actually sooner than later, and then we realized, oh shit, we need to do that with Mr. Black for sure.
Yeah, we were thinking about doing that in the near future, and then it dawned on us like, hey, we really should save that for when Chris comes back on the show and talks about what he's been working on. So Bathory will happen, but we're gonna wait for Chris to do it justice.
Impaled Nazarene's another suggestion here. That's a good idea. I really, that early Impaled Nazarene sits in the same kind of realm as this Immortal stuff does for me. Although a little more aggressive and punky, I think I really classify those two in the same kind of a similar rank for some reason. I don't know why, but that'd be a fun one. I do know I am planning on doing a Godflesh ranking eventually. I know that's not really up Alan's in Alan's wheelhouse, so we might have another guest today. It'll be on a Wednesday. It won't be a long stream. It'll just be an hour.
But, yeah, I cannot help you with that one, but I'll definitely check it out and cheer from the chat. But yeah, there are folks that are much better qualified to talk about Godflesh than I am. I can't do that topic any justice.
Right on. Rotting Christ. I mean, yeah,
The
year is young. There's a lot of weeks coming up. I mean, we'll have to fill in the holes with something. So we'll have fun. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out. And thank you all for coming along for the ride. And hopefully by this time next week, I'll have some t-shirts for you folks to look at and consider draping across your tattered carcasses.
No, you must blanket the frost bitten flesh of the hordes of blushers.
Exactly. But thanks everybody. We'll see you Friday. We don't know who the guest is yet. We're always a little late to the draw on that because we're a couple busy guys. So but we'll get it figured out. Alan, you have anything to close with?
Nope, just some other good suggestions popping up in the chat. Pestilence would be a full one to go through. Tim mentions Chameleon Deep. Tim, I'm going to assume you mean Chameleons, the UK post-punk band, because that would be an awesome deep dive, and not the Halloween album, because that would be just awful. I have a thought. I do have a plan for what to do with a Halloween Chameleon. That might be fun, but that's going to take a little doing. So I have a notion. I have to run it by my colleague here, and we might come up with something that would be interesting regarding that horrible train wreck of an album.
Well, people love hearing us talk about Halloween. I know that. I can hear the eyes rolling across the internet like, oh man.
Yeah, but if we talk about Chameleon, that's gonna be a special kind of conversation. But I have a thought, and I'll run that by you. But after we head backstage.
Yeah, Destroyer 666. As much as I enjoy some of their albums, they kind of turned out to be a sketchy bunch. We won't be covering that for sure.
Have some good albums in their catalog for sure.
Yep, absolutely. But okay, anyway, everybody, cheers. Have a good night. Take care. See you Friday.
Everybody take care.